YouTube, what's going on? Welcome to the Off the Schneid 2020 NFL Preview Series, where I'll be going over all 32 NFL teams, breaking down their rosters, their schedule, giving you a record prediction, as well as helping out with some betting tips. If this is your first time at the channel, do me a massive favor, hit that like and subscribe button, turn on notifications, and check the description for links to social media for Off the Schneid. Follow us on there as well. I want to give a massive shout out to OurLads Scouting Services and OurLads.com for helping me to make these videos. I'm on their website almost daily, and if you're a serious football fan, guys, you need to have this website bookmarked, favorited, whatever it is. Helps me at draft time, fantasy football purposes, when creating bet slips, as well as DFS lineups. It's your one-stop shop for NFL scouting services. There's a link in the description for OurLads.com as well as the social media. Do me a favor again, hit that like and subscribe button. But enough of that. Let's get to your favorite NFL football preview. We got the Philadelphia Eagles we're taking a look at, last year's NFC East Division champs. I picked them to win the division last year and was correct. So let's start with quarterback. For Carson Wentz to do what he did last year, with the very limited weapons he had, that was very impressive. And I was a little bit wrong. I was definitely wrong on Carson Wentz. I think he's probably, I know I'm going to catch some heat for this, but I think he's probably the second best quarterback to come out of that draft. Looking at it now, I think going into the draft, I wasn't very high on him. To be honest, and I was wrong. I think I had him as my fourth quarterback. I had Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, I think someone else, I can't recall off the top of my head, and then Carson Wentz is my fourth quarterback in that draft. Drafted second overall, obviously, and he's been great, man. He's been really, really good. He suffered that torn ACL in his sophomore season when he was having an MVP caliber season, and then obviously that kind of trickled into his third year, where he only played 13 games, has struggled to stay healthy a little bit. But that's not that big of a thing to me. That's kind of how it goes when you rip your ACL as a quarterback. It takes at least like 1 year maybe for you to kind of get back to normal. And then, last year, 27 touchdowns, 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns with the receivers that he had. And even the running backs at that point, like Miles Sanders is a very good running back, but he was still a rookie last year. And then Boston Scott comes out of nowhere and plays really well. It was very, very, very good and very encouraging if you're an Eagles fan. There's a lot of people that hate on Carson Wentz. That's with every team. Everybody has an opinion in the NFL, and everybody's right. So you can never be right, and don't try to change people's opinions. It's just silly, and I've been wasting a little bit too much time trying to do that. But either way, Carson Wentz, I really, really like. He's a fantastic quarterback. And then I really don't like this draft pick at all. I really, really like Jalen Hurts a lot. I just don't love him here, to be honest with you, because he's not going to play a ton. He's just not, unless Carson Wentz goes down with an injury. But I do suspect that he gets into the game. I do suspect that they have some plays for Jalen Hurts, and he's going to have some stats passing, running, and receiving potentially. I think Jalen Hurts does a lot of different things. Doug Peterson, Press Taylor, Jeff Stoutland, they're creative guys. And the speed that they added on this team, oh my goodness, it's crazy. So I'll get to that, but I really like their quarterback situation. I really do. Miles Sanders as their top running back out of Penn State. He backed up Saquon Barkley for a couple years, and now he's the clear-cut starter in Philadelphia. Boston Scott will help out as well. They'll kind of be rotational. I definitely can see them doing a lot of the same things. The Eagles usually have that kind of between the tackles pounder, like Jordan Howard last couple of years, or last year at least, and then they had Ryan Matthews for a while there. They always kind of usually had that guy, and I'm not really sure. I mean, Corey Clement can definitely kind of fill that to a point, I don't, not Elijah Holyfield. I mean, they're solid backups and everything, but they don't have that real grinder, you know? And I always, from what I can recall, and I could be a little bit wrong here, but I always kind of recall the Eagles having that goal line type of back, you know what I mean? But Either way, I definitely like Miles Sanders. I'm not quite as high as a lot of people are in the fantasy football world on Miles Sanders. I think he has a very good season, but I'm not quite as high as other people. I'm not going to be the guy that reaches for him, I'll tell you that. Zach Ertz is one of the better tight ends in the game, and Dallas Goedert is probably the best backup tight end in the game and just contributes on his own. So they definitely have a huge, they were the biggest weapons on this team last year, were the tight ends. So Zach Ertz led the team. They're the top two. They're the top two in both receptions and yards and touchdowns. And there's a potential that even stays the same. There's a potential that continues this season. Zach Ertz is obviously still going to get his targets and his touches, and Dallas Goedert too. Like, that's probably the best 1-2 punch at tight end in the NFL. It's up there anyways. Offensive line is still very good. I think they're middle of the pack in sacks allowed last season. Andre Dillard, we'll see if he can step in and just be that guy. He should be fine. I like him. And they should be okay. They play very good team. Like, the line plays well together. Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks are fantastic. Jason Kelsey is one of the leaders on that line and on this team, really. And then they added Prince Tega and Jack Driscoll, both from Auburn. So they've been playing together. That's a really good draft picks right there for the Eagles. They had a pretty decent draft and filled a bunch of holes. I just wasn't super stoked about the Jalen Hurts pick, even though I know it's going to help this team and they're going to be able to confuse some teams, absolutely, with adding in Jalen Hurts and being able to do some things like Taysom Hill might do. Looking at the receiver position, where they were like decimated last season, absolutely decimated. I believe, off the top of my head, Alshon Jeffrey is starting on the PUP list. And I believe Deshaun Jackson is playing right away. I maybe should have looked into it, but that's not what has me super excited about this offense anyways. If those guys are both back playing, it's going to help absolutely, especially a guy like Alshon Jeffrey, who can be that jump ball type of guy, because they have tons of speed, tons of breakaway speed. Jalen Reagor, I thought I liked Denzel Mims a little more, and I thought that's who they were going to go after. It's fine. Jalen Reagor's, here's the thing, they added Jalen Reagor, traded for Marquise Goodwin, John Hightower, and Quez Watkins. I think all four of them have 4.3 speed. So speed kills, man. Speed kills, and they've got it in spades. So I really like what they did. Just adding there's a lot of different things they can do, and I think it's going to confuse some teams, especially in the red zone and in the 1st and 10 from the 15-yard line, or just in the red zone in general. I think that they can do some interesting things and really, really confuse some teams and potentially put up a lot of points. We'll see, but I think that I like that possibility. I think even Greg Ward was a former quarterback too, wasn't he? I believe. And he should still have a role on this team. I think he's earned it. After what he did last season, I think he earned at least a shot to be on this team and to contribute. But yeah, man, they got so much faster. With Deshaun Jackson still there, 4.3 speed as well. They got tons of speed. They could just, run your lights out, basically. We'll see what happens, but there's tons to like about this team and this offense. And it'll be interesting what they do with Jalen Hurts. So let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. Jim Schwartz, in my opinion, is one of the best defensive coaches in the NFL right now. I'm a massive fan of Jim Schwartz. I really like him, and he should probably be getting a head coaching job fairly soon again. But the only spot where there's a tiny bit of weakness on this defense, in my opinion, actually there's two spots. Linebacker is definitely a little weaker. They're super strong up the middle on their line. Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave, who they brought over from Pittsburgh, I absolutely love that get. And those guys are they're super strong up the middle, like I said. Malik Jackson as well, and Hassan Ridgeway are your backups. I mean, they might be able to help out on the outside, not likely, and they might split off to some 3-4 type stuff with Derek Barnett. But after Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett, they're a little weak. Josh Sweat's okay, and Jernard Avery, I mean, they're okay, but that is a tiny bit of a weakness. Graham and Barnett are great, and they play a lot of downs, so it's kind of okay. But I wouldn't mind, I mean, obviously it's hard to do that and it's easy to say, but even if they grabbed a guy like Bradley and something like that, I would have liked that in the draft. And then at linebacker, they are a little bit weak. Sean Bradley and Davon Taylor, they picked up in the draft. I think I really like Davon Taylor. I think he might end up starting on this defense. But that is a bit of a weakness, which they might be able to hide with their strength up the middle on the defensive line. So they should be okay in the run game because they've got those run stuffers up the middle. Fletcher Cox and Hargrave are fantastic, and Malik Jackson Ridgeway are very good as well. So that can hopefully help them hide those guys in the run game. As well as a guy like Rodney McLeod and Jalen Mills. Their safeties are pretty good, so they can help out in the run game as well. Not that these guys are just, they're going to get run over, that's for sure. They're linebackers I'm talking about, but that might be a little weakness for them. Their corners I like a lot. They obviously brought in Darius Slay, who's going to be very good for this team. Nikhil Roby-Coleman I really like. Avonte Maddox I really like. Sidney Jones I really like. Rasul Douglas I really like. There's a lot to like on this team. In the secondary and the back end is quite good. So their line and their back end are all very good. This is definitely, a playoff and Super Bowl contending caliber defense for sure, especially with Jim Schwartz. So a little bit of weakness at linebacker, but that's the easiest position to kind of hide on your defense, in my opinion, is linebacker, especially when you are as good as the Eagles are on the front and back. So, yeah, I think there's tons to like. They're definitely a playoff team. Anything but the playoffs would be an absolute disaster for this team. I think they're absolutely in there to contend for the division again. We'll see how that shakes out. But with that, let's take a look at their schedule and the record prediction for the 2020 Philadelphia Eagles. So there you go. Low, high, my for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm probably going to catch some heat from Eagles fans. I'm sure I've caught heat from every fan of every team telling me how stupid I am because we disagree on where I think they're going. But either way, I think the low end would be an absolute disaster for the Eagles if they finish 7-9. I don't think it's out of the question, but I don't anticipate that happening. Obviously, I have them a lot closer to the high side, and they absolutely should compete for the division again. It's hard to ignore that there hasn't been a repeat champion in this division since the Eagles did it almost 20 years ago. That's something you can't really ignore. If it was 5 years or something, I'm not too worried about it. Even 10, it's like, yeah, you go through spells where you're a bad team, but nearly 20 years for there never to be a back-to-back champ in the NFC East, that says something. That really does, and they obviously won last year. So, I mean, they're definitely going to be in contention to win this division for sure. Can they win the division? Absolutely. Will they? I don't know. I'm projecting the Cowboys. They do have a better offense. That's just honesty right there. The Cowboys have a better overall offense than the Eagles do. The Eagles have a much better defense than the Cowboys do. So they're really close, and it's going to be a very fun kind of matchup. And that Week 16 game might just decide, like it has, for a few of these years, a lot of these years going back, the Week 16, 17, 15 type game between the Cowboys and the Eagles decides the winner of this division. And that's probably what's going to happen this year. So there you go. Let's take a look through their schedule. We got at Washington. I absolutely expect them to get this win. Like I've said in a ton of these, you have to beat these teams. That's a team, whether you're at home or on the road, you have to beat the Redskins. And it allows them to get ahead of the division as well. But the Redskins have a very, very good defense. That's the only thing. But I don't think that their offense will be able to score enough on the Eagles' defense for them to stay in this game. I just don't see it. So I expect the Eagles to start 1-0. Then at home against the Rams, I'm really not a big believer in the Rams this year, and I think the Eagles absolutely get that win. At home against my Bengals, that sucks. I think the Bengals are going to come up short on that one. Hopefully they give them a good game and they're not just kind of blown out. But I think that's a little too early in the season for the Bengals to compete in this game against a team like the Eagles. So I think they get that win. Then on the road against the Niners, I expect the Niners to get that win. I really, really do. So they should be able to start 3-0 and then 3-1. Then at the Steelers, I think that the Steelers defense is extremely good, but it's not an extreme amount better than the Eagles defense, I don't think. So they definitely should be able to compete there, but I like the Eagles offense a bunch more than the Steelers offense. I've said it in almost all of these where the Steelers are included, including the Steelers episode that I did. I don't really particularly believe that Ben Roethlisberger is going to be able to come back and just sling the rock all over the place after what sounds like a Tommy John surgery at 38 years old. I just don't see him being able to do that. And so I give the Eagles a very good chance at winning this game. Do I think if they go out there and just dust the Steelers in Pittsburgh? Not necessarily, but I give the Eagles a very good chance to win this game. In-state game, it's a big rivalry game. Should be a fun one. That one maybe could be like I guess they're prime time against the Niners. That's fair, but either way, at home against Baltimore, I really, really, really like the Ravens a lot. I think they were the best team in football last year, record-wise. They were the best team in football, and they only got better. So that's going to be an extremely tough test for the Eagles right there in Week 6 against the Ravens. Week 7 at home, short week, but at home against the Giants. I think they absolutely get that win. There's no reason to think they don't, so that should be a win right there. And then at home against Dallas, it's very easy for me to say, and it's quite likely they just split with the Cowboys in the home and home, especially right before their bye. And the bye week is fine. Week 9 is an okay bye week for the Eagles. Again, if I'm the Eagles, I'd probably rather it's week 11 or 12. The later the better if you're a playoff team, in my opinion. And the Eagles, to me, are absolutely a playoff team. Division caliber team, potential to win the division, and I would want my bye week to be as late as possible. So 9 is fine, but I would rather it was a little later if I'm an Eagles fan. Then they come back and play New York again. In New York, again, that's a team you have to win no matter what. No matter if you're playing in New York, in Philly, doesn't matter. The Eagles have to win that game. I give them a very good chance to win that game, and to be honest, they probably do, and they should. At the Browns, I'm probably picking the Browns there. It depends on, obviously we're going to know, it's tough to project that game right now. If I'm projecting that game right now, I pick the Browns in Cleveland. But I would have said the same thing, last season about the Browns. On paper, they have one of the best rosters in the NFL, but we got to go out there and play these games. So we'll see, and it'll be you'll know who the Browns are at that point in the season for sure. If they're who I think they'll be and who I project them to be, I think the Browns win that game. At home against the Seahawks, they always play the Seahawks tough. They absolutely always play the Seahawks tough. They gave them a tough matchup in the playoffs last year. Primetime game, which it should be. That should be a very good game. It's in Philly. I like their chances. Do they win it? I'm not going to, that's almost a 50-50 right there. I give the Eagles the edge. It's probably like a 65-35 for the Eagles to win that game. But no shame in losing to the Seahawks, even if it's at home. They should be okay. Either way, that's a toss-up of a game. And then at Green Bay in December, I like the Packers in that one. They got a pretty good roster. They can pound the rock with their three-headed backfield. And then A-Rod should be pretty upset about everything and should have a good season. I think Green Bay in December, I like the Packers in that one. At home against the Saints, again, I think that's another team that they play pretty tough. And that should be a really good matchup. You can make a case that that's a primetime game as well. And that should be a very, very good game. Again, that's a tough schedule down the stretch here. You got Seattle, Green Bay, and New Orleans, all three playoff teams. And even the Browns are probably going to be a playoff team. I have all 4 of those teams going to the playoffs. That's a tough stretch right there for the Eagles. That's a tough kind of quarter. I know it's not, the last 4, whatever. It's not a typical quarter, but there's 4 games there. That's a tough quarter for the Eagles to get through. 2-2 is just fine. If you go 2-2 through that, you're fine with that. Absolutely. At Arizona, that's going to be a tough game. The Cards have improved a ton. But I think the Eagles would probably get it done there. I would like the Eagles as it sits right now in that game. We'll see when we get there, but right today, in June, I think the Eagles probably get that win. At Dallas, that might decide the division winner right there. That might be the game that decides this division. and it's in Dallas, which is, I mean, last year it was reversed. It was Dallas in Philly to decide the division winner, more or less. The Eagles still had to win their last game, but either way, that was to decide the division winner. Eagles got the job done. That's, like I said earlier, that's exactly how I could see this going again. And then that decides the division winner. The Cowboys are at home, they get the win. That's, I know I'm going to catch some heat probably from Eagles fans, but tell me I'm crazy. Like, that's kind of how I see this going again, as it has a bunch of times. And this year, the last game is in Dallas, week 16. I expect the Cowboys to get that win and win the division. Sue me. Week 17 against the Redskins. There's a reasonable potential, considering that Cowboys game, that the Eagles are locked into whatever, fifth, sixth, seventh, whatever it is, probably fifth or sixth in the playoffs as a wild card team, and they just sit a lot of their starters, and potentially the Washington Redskins get that win. But I mean, the Eagles won't care at that point, obviously. If it's a division winner game, like they have to win, like it happened last year, they have to win the division. They're obviously going to play everybody at home. I expect them to get that win for sure. Just depends on where they're at, where the Eagles are at. The Redskins, I do not expect to be a playoff team at all. If they do, wow, they had Dwayne Haskins is absolutely legit, but I don't expect them to. It'll just depend on where the Eagles are at in their season. So as far as the odds are concerned, it's right where it kind of should be, in my opinion. I think these are all fair numbers. 2.3 for the Eagles to win in the division. Can they win the division? Absolutely. For me, it's between the Eagles and the Cowboys. It really is. I think the Giants are 1 year away from being contenders there, and the Redskins might be two years away. But so it's kind of a toss-up, and I think it just comes down to week 16. That's kind of how it looks to me, and we'll see how it is. But let me know in the comments what you think. Hopefully I don't take too much heat like I have from every other team. Hopefully I don't take too much heat from Eagles fans on this one. They absolutely can win the division, will they? It's tough to ignore that stat I gave earlier. So there you go. There's your prediction and breakdown for the 2020 Philadelphia Eagles.